Well, it looks like that day has finally come when we have to discuss NFT danger. I don't mean NFTs being a danger to you. I'm talking about NFTs themselves being in danger of being classified as securities. This may sound far fetched to you. How can NFTs possibly be securities? They're not even fungible. It turns out there's a case going on right now where some very mainstream, very established NFTs could eventually be deemed to be securities. On top of that, the judge has already pretty much laid out the roadmap by which that could happen. Ready? Let's go. Today, we are going to discuss the Dapper Labs NBA Top Shot Moments case, what this ruling means and what it doesn't mean, something mysterious afoot at Coinbase involving a blue circle, news of some SEC subpoenas to Coinbase, the Fed meeting minutes, and the February Cardano 360. If you're sitting here looking at this image, wondering to yourself, since when do traffic cones ever have those black dots at the bottom? Or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. What happened today was a pretty important legal moment for NFTs, but we should be clear at the outset. What you're seeing right here, this post that got 685,000 views, over 500 retweets, over 1,000 likes, this is not what happened. This post says NBA Top Shot Moment NFTs are securities, judge finds. That is absolutely not what happened today. Apparently, that poster was relying on the title of this article. It looks like a Bloomberg article. The title says pretty much what the poster said. NBA Top Shot NFTs are securities, judge says in landmark case. Again, totally not what happened today. So now we know what didn't happen. Let's talk about what actually did happen. Here's the actual motion that the ruling on a motion that everybody's reacting to. So the reason this is important is that Gary Gensler has famously said that he thinks every cryptocurrency out there, every crypto asset even out there, is basically a security, except for maybe not CryptoKitties. I believe he actually used CryptoKitties as an example of something that was maybe not a security. The defendant in this case is actually Dapper Labs, who is the lab entity behind CryptoKitties. But this case isn't about CryptoKitties. It's about NBA Top Shot Moments NFTs. So these are very well-known mainstream NFTs because of their association with the NBA. These may be a little less talked about because they're not PFP NFTs like Bored Ape Yacht Club or something like that. But let's face it, any kind of merchandise related to the NBA is going to have a lot of cultural momentum to it. It's going to have a lot of cachet. There's a lot of consumers, a lot more consumers who are interested in NBA merchandise than almost any NFT intellectual property you could think of that comes from crypto proper. So this is an important NFT collection in the sense that it's very much a high profile mainstream kind of NFT collection. We've got Dapper Labs, founder of CryptoKitties. We've got the NBA. This is important and pretty high profile. Every judge in the United States knows what the NBA is. Name almost any NFT collection except for the maybe 2 or 3 very most well known, and the average judge is going to have no idea what that even is. So the thing here is that we don't have a ruling on anything that even looks like are NFTs or even are these NFTs securities. This ruling is on something different entirely. So if we come down here to page 15, we can see what they're actually ruling on. If you come down here to page 15, we have the legal standards section where they tell you what is the legal standard that's actually at issue here? And this is something that would be very familiar to any law student or any attorney, pretty much. This is a 12b6 motion to dismiss. So the court tells you to survive a 12b6, a complaint must contain sufficient factual matter accepted as true to state a claim to relief that is plausible on its face. So what's going on here is the court is going to look at the complaint. Here it's filed by, this is a class action suit. So we've got a group of people who have filed a complaint against Dapper Labs related to these NBA Top Shot Moments NFTs. And the court is basically going to say, okay, if everything they said in their complaint is true, have they sufficiently stated a claim to relief? So a claim that we could, rule in favor of and provide them some relief from that is plausible on its face. So if the court were to rule in favor of the defendants on a 12b6 motion to dismiss, they're basically saying, hey, even if everything the plaintiff said is true, they still haven't said anything that gives them any kind of a claim against the defendant. If they rule in favor of the plaintiff, they're just saying, hey, we're not ruling here on whether or not the things you said are true or not. We're not making a ruling on the veracity of what you said, the truth of what you said. We're just saying if everything you said is true, then that's enough to show that you have some kind of plausible claim against the defendant. So we're going to let the lawsuit go forward. This complaint will survive the 12b6 motion to dismiss. The lawsuit will survive. You'll be able to go forward and we'll have the lawsuit. This is like the gate where the defendant says, hey, we don't even need to have a lawsuit over this. They haven't even said anything that, is a plausible claim against us as the defendant. And the court says either like, okay, yeah, defendant, you're right. This is ridiculous. We don't even need to have we don't even need to go any further with this claim. We can tell already that this is nonsense. There's no claim here. There's no plausible claim here. So what happened today is the court decided not to dismiss this complaint. In and of itself, that would probably not be as interesting. Dapper Labs would have been very happy about that. Their motion was exactly what I just described. They were saying to the court, like, hey, you should just dismiss this. They haven't even stated a claim, a plausible claim. The court disagreed. And in its ruling on this motion, the court actually went through a very, very detailed analysis of the Howey test, which is what I think threw some people off. I think some people may have read this ruling and they said, oh, the court already went through the Howey test and they decided that these NFTs are in fact securities. That's not really what happened. What happened was the court went through a very detailed analysis of the Howey test, yes, but it was an analysis of the Howey test assuming that everything the plaintiff said was true. This is actually pretty valuable to us, though, because we haven't seen necessarily anything exactly like this before. And this ruling on this motion doesn't really have as much to do, I think, with NFTs generally, but it is pretty instructive as to the particular scenario laid out in this complaint, the context around these NFT Top Shot Moments NFTs. And it's not really a normal scenario for NFTs. There's some extra stuff going on, but it is instructive because it's pretty obvious reading this ruling that if you do certain things with your NFT collection, that's probably a bad idea if you don't want them to be securities. So, of course, the court does what you expect. They go through the Howey test. First prong, investment. Was there an investment of money? Of course. This is crypto. Of course, there was an investment of money. Then they get to the common enterprise prong. Was this an investment of money in a common enterprise? And here's where things get interesting. They say, hey, for a common enterprise, you need to have either horizontal or vertical commonality. And in this particular federal circuit, we've embraced only strict vertical commonality. We'll get to that in a second. But under horizontal commonality, the court tells us that you need to have two things: a sharing or pooling of the investor funds and that the fortunes of each investor in a pool of investors are tied to one another and to the success of the overall venture. If you're getting confused by this legal jargon, don't worry. We're going to explain what these words mean, so you don't need to have any understanding of any of those little buzzwords there. So the court is going to go ahead and tell us generally pooling occurs when the funds received by the promoter, so in this case the NFT project, through an offering are essentially reinvested by that NFT project into the business. So pooling is just when they take the funds received from the NFT sales and reinvest them into the business. So I think it's hard to say that a lot of NFT projects don't do that, because the buyers of the NFT are kind of hoping that some of that happens. That's kind of what they're hoping happens, that the NFT project doesn't just like blow all the money on moon Lambos. They're kind of hoping that the project will reinvest that into further development of the project. In fact, purchasers get mad at the project when they even get a suspicion that there's none of that going on. And here the court is saying, actually, that's what pooling is. That's like one of our two requirements for horizontal commonality. And in this particular case, the court is saying that the complaint adequately alleges that pooling exists because Dapper Labs, who is the project team behind these NFTs, their sell of the NFTs was used to support and grow the Flow blockchain. And here's the part that's really interesting. So Dapper Labs created and maintained the Flow blockchain. They had their NFTs running on their own blockchain, and they also built out a marketplace. And the court is saying, well, obviously there was pooling, since pooling is taking all the funds and reinvesting them in the business, taking all the investor funds and reinvesting them in the business. And it's been alleged here that they took those funds and reinvested them in supporting and growing the blockchain. So this is interesting. The thing that it seems NFT purchasers are looking for a lot of times is the thing that satisfied this piece of the court's analysis of whether or not these NFTs were securities. Remember, we said the court was looking for either horizontal commonality or vertical commonality. They said horizontal commonality was sufficiently alleged, so we don't even need to talk about vertical commonality. We can move directly to prong 3, expectation of profits. But hey, this is crypto. This is a large, well-known NFT collection. It's pretty easy to imagine how the court came to the conclusion that an expectation of profits on the part of the NFT purchasers was sufficiently alleged. So we can move directly to prong 4 down here, which has to do with the expectation of profits being on the efforts of the promoter. So here they're going to use not just the Howey test language, but they're going to use the Foreman case language, which adds in 2 important words, that entrepreneurial and managerial. So they're going to say that the expectation of profits has to be based on the entrepreneurial or managerial efforts of others, has to be derived from entrepreneurial or managerial efforts of others. This prong is also very, very easy for the court. They say defendants concede the necessary element in their opening paragraph when the defendants say the law requires that the efforts of the promoters must be necessary to the success of the venture, such that without them, the investments would be virtually worthless. They say it is plausible that Moment's value is derived almost entirely. The Moments are the NFTs, that the NFTs values are derived almost entirely from the continued operation by Dapper Labs of the Flow blockchain, which enables price transparency and thus influences value, but perhaps more critically appears to provide purchasers with the ability to trade at all. So they're saying, hey, they're coming back to, again, what Dapper Labs built out related to their NFTs. They're saying, hey, Dapper Labs built and maintains this Flow blockchain and this other marketplace. And that marketplace is the only place where you can trade these NFT Top Shots Moments NFTs. So if Dapper Labs, if their entrepreneurial and managerial efforts went away and the Flow blockchain and the marketplace were no more, then the the trading of these NFTs wouldn't be able to happen at all. So, of course, this expectation of profits is based on the entrepreneurial and managerial efforts of Dapper Labs. So, what does this all mean? Does this mean that NFTs are securities? No, this just means that the court can see some plausible claims here in this particular circumstance where Dapper Labs had this blockchain they built out and were maintaining, and they had this marketplace they built out and were maintaining, where the court says that marketplace was the only place to trade those NFTs. But maybe this is some important information for NFT projects. If you are building out things like this for your NFTs, if you are creating this captive marketplace, the only place where your NFTs can trade, if you're creating a blockchain for your NFTs, maybe you want to take a look at this case, because the things that your NFT purchasers might be demanding of you might be the very things that a court like this could say make your NFTs a security. We also have two pieces of Coinbase news. This first one is a report about outstanding SEC subpoenas that Coinbase has received. Here's the actual note in the Coinbase 10K that I believe that post was referencing. It's this second paragraph here. The company has received investigative subpoenas and requests from the SEC for documents and information about certain customer programs, operations, and existing and intended future products, including the company's processes for listing assets, the classification of certain listed assets, its staking programs. I would imagine that's probably a big one. And its stablecoin and yield generating products, also probably big. I would imagine the SEC is very focused on these things, staking programs and its stablecoin and yield generating products. Based on the ongoing nature of these matters, the outcome remains uncertain, and the company cannot estimate the potential impact, if any, on its business. The last part of that was just kind of some standard risk type language that you would see in periodic reports for a lot of different companies. So it's probably not really as scary as it sounds, but still something to note, and definitely not as seemingly positive as this mysterious post from Coinbase. Something circular and blue and mysterious is afoot at Coinbase. It says 2/23/23, and then it just plays this loop of a blue circle. A lot of people, of course, were jumping to the conclusion this is going to be some kind of an airdrop of a Coinbase token, which seems insane given the climate of regulatory scrutiny around crypto right now. It seems like it would be insane for Coinbase to suddenly drop a Coinbase coin, and a lot of people who are very skeptical of that have they've responded with a retort that Coinbase already has a token. It just happens to be a stock, the Coinbase stock, the Coinbase equity securities. So we don't know what this is, but a lot of people are very excited to find out exactly what this is going to be, and I assume we'll find out today. The Fed FOMC meeting minutes came out today, and the part that everybody seemed to focus on is this section on page 11, most of the way down this paragraph here. A few participants, these are participants in the meeting, this FOMC meeting, a few participants stated that they favored raising the target range for the federal funds rate 50 basis points at this meeting, or they could have supported raising the target by that amount. So obviously what we got, the hike we got was a 25 basis point hike. That's a 0.25% hike to the federal funds rate. What they're saying here is that a few people actually wanted 0.5%. They actually wanted 50 basis points. So it's not quite what some people were hoping, that, sort of they like narrowly settled on 25 basis points as opposed to, say, 0. It's actually that some people wanted 50 and they settled on 25. So that means that the appetite to control inflation, or continue efforts aimed at controlling inflation, even if they're to the detriment of markets in some people's views, is probably a little bit stronger than some were hoping. Finally, today is the February Cardano 360. So tune in. It looks like this one's called Essential Cardano 360 Driving Adoption and Interoperability. So tune in to Tim Harrison and everyone else, and we will get to hear about plans and efforts aimed at adoption and interoperability. I hope you're having a great week, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.